Far we have discussed the emphasize phase, the define phase, and right now moving we are progressing towards a little bit of the ideate phase, that is the third step of a design process, and we'll be overlapping with the prototype part as well, because prototype is just basically linking out the screens. So we'll start with the ideate part. So ideate part typically has a most important thing which is called the wireframes. So wireframes, as I mentioned in my earlier lectures, are just like a skeleton of anything you are going to design. It can be a car body just on a paper. It can be your body skeleton except your organs and skin on it. So basically we are going to define the blueprint of the digital product we are creating. So wireframes are nothing, they are just a fundamental component of the UI UX design process. They are simple, schematic, and low fidelity. Low fidelity means it does not have much details, like it doesn't have much of icons or colors or font selected. It is just basically drawing shapes and basically assembling things, assembling different components of information, of buttons, of visuals which will appear, and deciding the order, deciding the position of each of them. So basically we are using the wireframes to outline the basic structure, layout, and content placement of a user interface before adding any visual design elements or interactive features. As I mentioned, they serve as a blueprint for the design and development of a digital product. So let me show you an example. So if you have ever gone through a login screen or a sign up screen on your any mobile app, you will see these are the basic details that show up. They might differ in the design, but underlying structure, the basic structure or the blueprint remains the same. So they have a logo, they have a login password input field, they have a login button, they have a login with Facebook or Google or any other social platform button, and they have a registration option where you can create a new account with different details. So these are just a representation of that form, but these details can differ. But the basic structure of blueprint I am trying to say that wireframes are used for is something like that, with no visually appealing details or no visuals or fonts or colors selected, just writing out the information, assembling things, that how the basic structure of our final digital product will look like. So in the next lecture we will be discussing a real life example of wireframes of digital product that I have created, so you can refer to it as your learning path. Basic understanding of how wireframes work and what is their importance and what is their purpose, we look at a real life example. So I'll continue with the project management system software that I was discussing about in the user flows and everything else. We look at its wireframes. Okay, so I have divided these wireframes into different sections for, like, as I mentioned, user persona. So I have created different screens for each persona. Like the project manager will have different accessibility and roles, employees will have different accessibility and roles. So depending on that, they will be shown different screens with different features. So just to give you a glimpse of what a wireframe look like, look at this. I will also show you the difference between this wireframe and the final UI. So I've just not focused on anything uh, related to the font size, the font color, the icons, the visuals, the details, the alignment, nothing. I just focused on what information is going to be shown on the screen, like the side menu, which information will be shown in which part of the screen, what information will be shown inside that part, what will be our basic buttons, like here is a create and filter button, and basically the positioning of each element. So without wasting any time, so these basically are digital wireframes. We can also create paper wireframes in the beginning of process, and they are basically useful because they allow us to do rapid iterations. Because once you have created a wireframe, it's not like that this is the final one. You need to gather feedback and you can reiterate on that and create another wireframe. So paper wireframes are basically useful for that, But even if you are creating digital wireframes, they could be useful because they can be translated in the final UI more effectively. So this is the wireframe for a dashboard of a project management system. And if I show you the similar hi-fi, that is high fidelity, with all the visual details, that would be our final UI. It would look something like this. This is our final UI. So here you can see the dashboard heading, the logo, the side menu with all the colors, the avatars, the button with colors, the project details. So we have basically applied colors, icons, font size, visual hierarchy, different font sizes, and different color schema according to our design guidelines to just convert that wireframe into something like this. But as you can see, the basic structure is just what we have drawn wireframe like. So basically wireframes are like the blueprint of our final UI. So we can create forms, we can create different screens. You don't need to worry about the visual details here. You can just freely, with all the freedom, just draw different shapes, draw different ideas. So basically wireframes are like uh, minus one step before the final UI we are gonna design. We are now done with our wireframing part, and we know how to arrange and create the blueprint of the final screens or the pages for a website or mobile application that we are designing, basically the digital product. Now comes the UI part. So we are basically, most of the UX part is completed now. We have done our research, we have understood the users, we have understood what we are going to design, we have brainstormed the ideas, and we have converted those ideas into wireframes. So next comes the UI part. So the UI part basically we are going to start now. The UI part basically consists of all the foundational elements, the visual hierarchies, anything related to colors, fonts, typography, and how to make our product more effective and visually appealing at the same time. So this is what the UI part is for. So we'll understand one by one all the elements and all the things that we're gonna keep in mind while creating the final UI for the project. So we'll start with the foundational elements of UI design. So basically we have three main components or elements, you can say, which define our project. So one of them is typography, second is the icons part, as you can see here, and third one is the color. So typography is not just choosing the right font, it involves choosing the right font as well, along with different sizes and what font suits what type of project we are designing. So even if it's a fun and creative project, so what type of fonts are going to be used in that project. If it is a simple one, what fonts are going for that one. Regarding the icons, we have icons could be more simple or more relevant to the project we are using, but try to make icons consistent. There are various numerous websites where you can find free icons, free icon packs. There are plugins from Google and Icons 8 and many of them where you can find free icons and use in your project, but try to use consistent icons so that user does not gets confused. The last one is the color part. So basically colors are very effective and they basically convey our message. So each color has its emotions, you know, black has a different energy and emotion it conveys, blue has different, yellow has different. So we can research and choose according to our theme. So basically there are a lot of websites which can help you in creating color palettes. There are different color palettes you can choose, like you can have single color palette, you have multicolor palette for two colors or three colors, and how to choose, there are many theories. So I'm not basically going into much detail for these things. I'm just letting you know that what are the elements that we look for while before creating the final UI and what should be your approach. So basically you are going to select these all of these things in advance before you start working on the UI part. I can show you from a real project. Like I have created here a design guideline. So basically I have chosen the typography. I have chosen a font called Poppins. It is free from Google Fonts. Then I have defined different styles, like I am gonna use heading with bold, semi-bold, different font size, 24, 20 pixels, 16 pixel. Next comes the color. So I have taken two colors here. I have taken a two color palette. So primary and secondary colors are uh, blue and kind of a shade of golden yellow that I have chosen for my project. Neutrals are basically the colors that you use for your backgrounds, your text, your surface colors. And semantics are like for showing success bars, in progress bars, and error fields. So basically, I've defined those colors here. So whenever you are going to start your design part, the final UI design part of your project, just keep in mind that these three are the foundational elements, and try to fix these things before you start, and then work upon that to create the final part. Next comes the alignment, the positioning part. Also we have positioned our elements in wireframes as well, but here comes the exact positioning, like spacing and padding and margins and all. So grids, layout, spacing, all of these are mandatory things to create digital products that are accurate to the point. They are pixel perfect, and they can be shown very much effectively in any screens, because phone screens or desktop screens are have a lot of variety in their resolutions and in their sizes. So to make sure that our product looks good and consistent on each platform, understanding grids, layout, and spacing is very important. So grids is basically, we are using grid system, like we have divided our screen into different parts. So if I like go to my hi-fi mockup, and if I show you my grid here, so basically you can see I have divided these my final screen into 12 parts, 12 columns basically. So my sidebar is consistent with these two bars. My project cards are like equally spaced, and my these cards are equally spaced within 5 columns, and then 5 columns are for these 4 KPI boxes. So basically what we meant by grids and layouts and spacing is that we divide the screen so that it comes to the consistency that whatever the resolution or size of the desktop or TV screen that we are going to show our digital product on, we can easily divide that resolution or that screen into different parts, and then position and give size to our elements according to those bifurcation. So as you can see here that I have divided my screen into, I have designed these standards. So these for 12 columns, and I have a margin of 24 pixel from the side screen, and then I have a gutter margin of 24 pixel. The margin is like your distance between the first column and the edge of the screen, and gutter margin is the distance between two simultaneous columns. So we can define these in Figma and create a style for that. Like I have created a desktop grid style here. You can see I have named it. I have understood 12 columns, given it a grid system. So basically what are grids, I can show you. Grids are basically, so we whenever we give spacing in UI, we give it in 8 pixel system. So we give spacing of 8 pixels, 16 pixels. So basically 8 is our base. So if we gonna like I can show here. So I have defined this auto layout. You can use either 4 base as a 8 base or a 8 base. So 4 base is basically giving space between two list items. Here you can understand more better. Yes. So you can see 24, 24 padding, right padding, left padding, top padding, vertical gap between items. All of these are in basis of either 4 or 8. So we use across industry 8-point system or 4-point system for giving spaces between elements, and it is most widely used, and basically it is based on theory that it is more effective and visually appealing for the user to give this space. If I show you the distance between my cards and this, you can see it is 16. Here you can see it's 8. Here you can see it is 12. So no 13, no odd numbers, nothing. You can either use 4 point or 8 point. And even if you are using 8 point system, you can use 8, 12, 16, 24, 32, 40, 48, 60, everything in the multiple of 8. And sometimes you can use one or two things that in 4 point. So if even if I am using an 8 point spacing system, you can use 8 points gap, then 12 points, then 16, then 24. And if like 20 is not divisible by 8, still you can use it because is it divisible by 4. So there is some flexibility over here, but try to keep these things consistent so that spacing looks. So basically spacing makes the visual look of our elements go good together and make it consistent across all screens. So this was all about the grids layout and spacing part for any of the digital product that we are designing. Understood about the foundational elements and the spacing. So we are done with our icons, typography, the colors. We know how to space these elements, we know how to design these elements, and we know how to fill these colors and all. But even after wireframes, there is something called visual hierarchy. So visual hierarchy is basically done in order to make things differ from each other. Like we have three basic things. There are a lot of more things, but I feel that these three are most important that you need to understand. So contrast is something that makes any element outshine other elements. So can focus more on that. So like for example, on our mobile app screens, there is a CTA button, call to action button, that we want the user to click upon. It can be a login button on a login screen, on it can be a new chat button on a messaging application. So to make that differ and to make that unique appear different from all other elements, we can give contrast to that element, either using color, using shape, or font can be tweaked to create visual contrast. So visually appealing and visually different from other elements. Scale is also something that makes the elements appear different. So basically making a thing bigger or smaller in size just separates it from the rest of the screen, and larger objects are more important than smaller objects. So basically we are just trying to show that you can focus more on larger objects as they are more important and smaller ones are less important. So this is what we try to convey to the users using scale. Proximity is also a different part. So for example, if you have using an payment app or any app, we have different options to pay the bills, to send payments to our friends and family. So basically we group all those recharge and bills feature into one section, and then the second friends and family part into other section, and we don't do it like creating a separate line between them and giving it a different background color. We just make all the related items appear closer together. So grouping objects is basically relationship between objects. Closely grouped objects are seen to be related to each other. So if I have 8 different menus for friends and family and 8 different menus for recharge and movie tickets and bills, I'll separate those 8 by grouping 8 items closely together and then giving more gap. So like I am giving a gap of 12 pixel, for example, according to the spacing system, between two same items in the same section, then I will give around 24 to 32 to 40 pixel gap between two different sections, so that user can visually differentiate between both those sections. So this was all about the visual hierarchy part. All the UI elements, the visual hierarchy, and the contrasting and everything related to the UI part. We can now focus on high fidelity mockups. So I'll give you a glimpse of what high fidelity mockups look like. So basically they are wireframes plus all the UI elements, and that becomes the high fidelity mockups part. So these mockups are just basic screens that include clickable links and elements, but they do not require interactions, animations, or transitions for anything. So basically, when we add, so basically wireframes plus UI elements is equal to the hi-fi mockups, and when hi-fi mockups have the clickable elements and interaction elements, animations, these become the prototypes. So prototypes are the things that go to the final user or that go to the development team for the development part. So I can show you my Figma file, and I have already shown you one or two screens from this file. So basically this what final UI looks like. So I'll show you that this is the login screen, this is the dashboard screen, these are the project dashboards. So as you can see, I have just kept all the wireframes as it is, but I have added the buttons with different colors. I have kept consistency in these colors, in the buttons, in the background color, and I have added icons. I have added the visual textual hierarchy using lighter shades of black and darker shades of black. I have added a logo. I have added other visual elements like you can say this divider lines, these small buttons, this underlying active tab showing capability. So this is like what the final UI part is all about and how it looks. Understand a little into detail about design systems. So we'll go through what design systems are, what are their components, what is their importance, and how we can create them, use them, and we'll discuss some of the popular design systems that are publicly available for everyone to use and create their own versions of that or their digital products using that design systems. So basically, what we will start with the definition, and I'll read it this definition for you, and then we can discuss this in a more simpler term, so you can understand more clearly. So a design system is a comprehensive collection of guidelines, components, and assets that are used to create consistent and cohesive design across various products and experiences within an organization. It serves as a single source of truth for design, ensuring that all digital products such as websites, applications, and other user interfaces maintain a unified look and feel. Design systems have become a crucial tool for design and development teams working on digital products, helping them create user-friendly and visually appealing experiences while streamlining their workflow. So in simpler terms, I'll try to explain this and I'll request you to focus on just two words, that is the consistent and the unified look and feel, these two words. So when we are working on small projects, they are worked upon by one or two designers, but when we are working in an organization or on multiple number of projects for a same brand, there are numerous designers working on that projects, like there might be 50 or 100 designers and at the same time this much number of developers. So how do we make sure that each designer creates the same visual appeal from the same element, like the same, all the designers make similar buttons, all the designers make similar cards, all the designers make similar feel for the platform they are creating within the brand. So if a company has a website for their landing pages, they have a mobile application, they have a tablet application, they have a watch application, and multiple different designers are working in different teams on the different projects, but they are under the umbrella of same brand. So how do we make sure that all of these are constant in look and in feel and in user experience for the end user? So this is where design systems come in place. Design systems are basically libraries. So they are basically libraries with reusable elements. So if you have ever done programming, it's like a library where you can reuse the same functions for any number of tasks. So we just basically define some guidelines. We basically set some standards for everything that can be designed. We set some standards for buttons, for typography, for icons, for colors, for sizes, for spacing, for layouts, for all the assets, and we combine that into a single file and give it to each team so that each team can refer to that, reuse those elements, and take information from those guidelines and design their respective products, either it's website or apps. So this is how in large organizations or in large companies the consistent unified feel is ensured. So this is where design systems are most important. So a key components of design systems are basically design principles. Basically, these are standards that has to be set, typography standards, color palettes that are to be used, no extra color that is to be used, iconography, the icon size, the icon type, the icon colors, components and patterns. So basically, components are reusable elements that can be used in Figma, and any change to the main component is made sure that it pushes all changes to the instances of those components. I'll de- explain in detail about components in the next lecture. And then layouts and grid systems. So basically these are all the things that you need to define in a file, in a page or in a separate file, and you need to make sure that this file is available to all the teams across the company and they can refer to it as an like a masterpiece or a master blueprint using which they can create their respective products, so that they can show their creativity and uniqueness, but at the same time they maintain the brand's identity, the brand's colors, and unified and consistent feel across all the digital products they are creating. Show you a design systems example, a small example of design system that is not very much enlarged, and the use of components in Figma. So basically we have defined these design guidelines as I was mentioning about the standard guidelines and typography and colors. So basically I have put up a page in my file that says design guidelines. I have spread out the grid system that is to be used for creating any website or any page or screen for this basic platform or similar project. The spacing guidelines, the typography, the different typography styles that can be used, and the different colors and their shades that needs to be used. So I repeat, nothing extra can be used outside these mentioned guidelines to make sure that the feel across all the pages and platforms are unified and consistent. Next, I have maintained a different page for components. So what basically components are basically like a reusable function in programming. So components are like I create a side menu. I have, as you can see, I have here number of different screens. Each of them have a side menu. But if I make changes to this side menu, I have to create changes to all of the side menus on the screens. So to get rid of that inconsistency, I create a single side navigation menu and I make it a component. And when I go to these mockups, instead of creating new side menu, I just go to the assets tab and I pull out a, like here you can see, these are components, these are side menu tabs like this. So I can just put it out from here to here and a navigation bar is created. So if I show you that how it can be useful, I go to components page and the company decides that no, we do not need to go with the white background. We need the background for this side menu as a different color. So we can just select different color here, like we go with the black one, the red one just here for example, and the company says that yes, this color is good. So now I don't need to manually update all those colors on all those screens. If I go to the hi-fi mockups, you can see that all the screens have their colors changed. So basically to make design process more effective and efficient, and at the same time allow all the developers and designers to create unique and consistent, not unique, consistent and unified feel across all the platforms or pages or screens they're designing. Components are a essential part of design systems and these can be used. So I have designed here different versions of buttons that can be used, different versions of icons, different version of icon colors, different version of progress bars, form fields like toggle buttons. So these are like basic components that are reused across many screens, and to make sure that the new designer or a new team member does not try to show his creativity and create a different thing, he or she just can refer to this file and just drag a copy of this and paste it into his or her file, and he is good to go. So it's been a long journey understanding the design process with you guys, and we have understood like the complete design parts, the elements, the process, the research group, which goes behind it, and all the components and theoretical concepts that you need to understand. But now there are like two most important parts which are remaining. Till now you have created hi-fi mockups for your projects, and now you think that they are ready to go to either the end users or the project managers or to the developers. But there is still one part remaining in that process, and that is prototyping. So basically, I'll make you understand this with an example. So right now we have these screens, okay? And these screens are not gonna be shown like this number of screens on the same page to the user or the developers or the project managers. They will not understand it. So the best part is to show them these on a single screen and then connect these screens like through links and connect clickable items, clickable buttons, or clickable menus so that users or our users end users, which will give feedback like project managers or developers, can use it like a actual product which has been developed and give feedback. So connecting these screens using clickable items is something that we call prototyping. And prototyping is like just connecting these screens using the prototype button that is here. So we'll now create a basic, just a simple prototyping element, and then you can better understand what I am talking about. So let's say I want that user gets to see this screen first, and when he or she clicks on this button, on this get started button, he or she moves to the next screen, that is the dashboard screen. So we'll create a new interaction here, and we'll select it as on click, and there are two options to trigger this. There are two multiple options to trigger this, but there are two options to select the target destination. So we can either use like there is a plus button that appears, so we can drag it out and connect it to this screen. Either way, we can create on click and then select navigate to, and then select from a number of multiple screens that are available here. We can select this. So as you can see, when I hover upon the dashboard screen, it actually becomes outlined with blue border. So it helps us in identifying the right screen. And now it is connected. Now we have multiple options to just, you can say, beautify our prototype. So instant means that this screen will instantly move to the second screen. Dissolve means it has some animations, a little bit of animation, like it blurs out and blurs in. Then we have smart element, like if both the screens have some common elements, they become smart element. We'll discuss this in the next lecture. For now we are just understanding prototyping, so I will select instant and I'll leave it. And now I'll go to this play button. I will select this screen, I'll go to the play button and I will select present. So this is loading, and whenever you have number of screens or pages, just connect those pages or screens using this clickable actions, and then try the prototype part, because your developers or your project managers are gonna see the final output on a single screen, not multiple screens on a piece of paper. So I will set it to fit to screen, and as you can see, I go to get to started, a clickable cursor becomes active, and when I click on get started, it moves me to the next dashboard screen. So there are clickable cursor is appearing at many places because I have already connected these pages. Like I have created the form part, I have created time sheets, the calendar, the help part, the settings. Back to the dashboard, select a project, we can go to resources, we can task, we can time sheets, we can fill new time sheet. So basically this is what prototyping is all about. Just a little more about these prototype settings and how you can more effectively and in a better way use to create better transition effects from one page to another. So first of all, there is a on click option. So on click is like clicking a button, clicking a text, but also you can use on drag. On drag is like for volume buttons or something which has different levels and you want to switch between levels. So you can basically use on drag. While hovering and while pressing is basically while for buttons, while you hover over a button or while you keep pressing a button. Mouse enter, mouse leave, mouse down, mouse up, and after delay. All these are types of, you can say, the actions, the triggers. These are different triggers that can be used to trigger a prototype. After the prototype is triggered, what does it do? Either it navigates to a target position, either it goes to back to its transition position. There are number of different options, like overlay is something we did with these form boxes in previous lecture. Like when I click on create button, a form appears on the same screen. So these are overlay options. And set variable, conditional, scroll to, open link. These are new features which are related to the variables. This I can discuss in some separate course if I make it on Figma. And scroll to is going to the different section on the same page, and open link is like opening something on your Safari browser or Chrome browser. So trigger is done. On trigger, what action is to be taken, done. The destination page is done. Now how that action is gonna be done? Either it is gonna be instant, like in milliseconds, in 0 milliseconds. Dissolve is something like blurring out, blurring in. Smart animate is like if you have similar elements or components on the both the screens, then you can see them moving or changing their shapes. Move in is like you can see here, another screen just moves out. Move out is one screen going out. Push is this effect. Slide in is this effect. So basically for below these last five effects, you can basically see on the screen how these effects are gonna take place. So this can help you better understand what transition you want and what type of transition you want on this type of page. Smart animate is something which is not shown here perfectly. So I can just create an example for you. So let's start by creating a frame, and we create a simple rectangle box, fill it with some purple color. Then we create a duplicate of this frame and we change the dimensions. So as you can see that rectangle here is rectangle 37 and here also it is rectangle 37. So you need to keep the rectangle name same. So I can set it as R1. Rectangle 37 was also fine, but just for reference I have mentioned it R1. So when I make a prototype for this, I connect this to this frame. On click, navigate is our action, frame 185 is our destination, and now I have selected smart animate. So when I now preview this, so I'll show you what smart animate and instant do. It is loading. So I'll show you different parts. See, what smart animate does is when I click on the rectangle, it does not make the second rectangle just appear, it eventually transforms into second rectangle. And if I just change here the smart animate to instant, now it instantly shows me second rectangle without doing anything. There are multiple options. If I click on dissolve, it basically blurs in, blurs out. We have move in, so when I click it goes, it comes in the screen. And similarly we can experiment with move out, push, slide in, slide out, and you can basically create transitions according to your preferences. So this was all about prototypes, and from the next lecture we will be understanding how we can gather feedbacks, how we can conduct studies, and how we are going to do final handoffs to the developers. Today's lecture is all about researching and conducting studies during our whole design process. So we are basically done with all our steps in design process, that is empathize, then defining, then ideating, then prototyping. The last part is testing. So these research studies can be a part of that testing part, and these studies can be a little bit part of previous steps as well. So I'll explain to you that how these studies can be a part of all the steps. But right now we are going to understand that what are these research studies, what are different type of studies that we can do, and what basically is the purpose of these studies. So basically they start in the research phase and continues even after the end of the project. So basically, what I am trying to say that you can conduct studies at each part, but they are not sometimes relevant or mandatory to conduct research studies at each part. Basically, the UX research study is all about understanding the users, taking feedback at each step. For example, you are conducting a market research, you are conducting a feedback of your prototype, you are conducting a feedback of your wireframes, even if you are conducting a feedback of your final UI. So all this becomes the part of UX research studies. So there are different types of UX research studies that you can conduct. We'll discuss in brief one by one. First one is the usability testing, which is the most widely used. That is, I would like to say that it's mandatory for each of your design process. So basically, it is when your prototype or your final screens are ready, even if they are low fidelity or high fidelity, and you give these screens to users and ask them to perform a specific task, and then you gather their feedback and insights and actions. You take actions upon those insights. So basically, as the word says, usability, it is all about that how your product is usable. If it is not usable at any point, then you get to know in this type of studies. User interviews, as you would conduct one-on-one interviews with each user to understand their problems, to understand their problems with the product, or to understand their problems for which you are designing the product. Contextual inquiry is also not very widely used, but basically it is when you make users understand what the context is all about, what digital product is all about, and then you conduct in-depth interviews for that. Ethnographic study is more of like contextual inquiry, but it is, you can say that it is not in depth. It is just like you are understanding user in a holistic view in a normal way, not going into much deep into their pain points or into their needs. Card sorting is like not just a research study, it is basically an activity that you conduct. So you give your users, you gather 10 to 15 to 20 users in a room, you give them different cards. This activity can also be conducted online. So basically, you tell your users or your interviews to sort these cards into single category. So basically, this activity can be used while you are designing information architecture for your app. So you spread out all the information on different cards and you let your users to basically sort this information into a particular category. So you get to know that on which page you can show which information. Next is eye tracking study. So eye tracking study is all about understanding whenever a user opens a website or mobile app, where his or her eyes are more focused, or so like heat maps can be used to conduct these studies as well. A/B testing is very widely used in development part, but you can also use in design process, like you are launching two different versions of the same product, alpha 1 and beta 1. So you give two different products to either the same users or different users and gather that which product is more useful and which product is the right one to proceed ahead with. Surveys and questionnaires are like you make a list of questions, like 15 to 20 questions, and spread it out to random people and just gather their feedbacks and create insights and actions on those answers. Diary study is like not a single day or a 1 hour study. You tell your users to observe their life for 1 day, for 2 days, for a week, and then whatever they feel is like observation or whatever they feel is like their pain point, they just need to jot down on a piece of paper or on a notebook. And after a week or a month, you can gather all these notes to make your design process more effective and based upon that. Next is field studies. So field studies is when you're not sitting in a room or in a Google Meet or a Zoom Meet. You actually go out into the grounds, you go out into your society, you go out into your department. So basically you are conducting a field study. So you are going into actual reality, actual physical environments where the people are residing, and then you get to understand what their pain points are and what their actual needs are. So this was all about the different types of UX research studies that you can conduct. Next, we will be understanding the usability testing because it is most widely used and like it's a mandatory part of your design process that is conducted at the end of your prototype stage. Previous lecture, in this lecture, we're going to understand what usability testing is and how it can better contribute and help us in making our design process more easier and more useful in creating a better digital product. So I'll read out the definition for you and then we can understand in simple way. Usability testing is a type of user experience research study that focuses on evaluating the usability and user friendliness of a product, service, website or application. So the primary goal of usability testing is to identify usability issues, gather feedback from real users and make informed improvements to enhance the user or over experience. So basically, what we are trying to do is that we gather a bunch of people in a room or on virtually on a meet, Zoom meet or Google Meet. Then we hand them over the final prototype of the product that we're gonna test, and we make a list of tasks or make a list of actions that they need to perform, and we just hand them over that list and ask them to perform each task one by one without any external help. So after the end of the task, we try to find out which tasks were easy to perform by the users, in which task they needed help, in which task they were able to identify how to proceed ahead with the task, and which tasks they proved to be difficult to move on with. So this is what usability testing is all about. Like in short, conducting real usability of your product with actual users after your final prototype is ready. So how does it helps? Basically, it provides you valuable insights on how users interact with the product, helping designers like us and developers identify areas that need improvement. Also, the feedback collected can lead to iterative design changes, ultimately resulting in a more user-friendly and effective product. So, as I mentioned earlier, it is an essential step in the UX design process to ensure that the final product meets the needs and expectations of its intended users. So here, the most effective part is that we can lead to iterative design changes. So UX research studies and basically UX usability testing study is not just about conducting study. It is basically about gathering feedback, then making insights and actions on it, and then iterating our designs changes that need to be done in our screens or in our pages for the respective website or mobile app, and then hand it over again to those users. So we will conducting these studies in like a loop until and unless all the users are identified. So even if the sample or a bunch of users which are intended to use that app and they are happy with that, we will be trying to conduct that loop for a number of time till our design becomes more user friendly and effective product. Different types of UX research studies that can be conducted, and we have also understood how usability testing is one of the most important ones. Now we need to understand that how we can conduct these usability testing studies and how we can actually plan and conduct these studies. So there are 7 steps. There are 7 universal steps to a usability testing. So first one is you plan the test. You write out the task, you write out the questions, you write out the number of users you're gonna be recruiting, you write out the place, the time, everything, basic information and the basic list of tasks and everything else you need to be planning before conducting your study. Second is you recruit participants. So the most important thing to notice here is that whenever you are recruiting participants for your study, try to gather a diverse set of people and try to gather that diverse set with actual user base. So like if you are creating a pizza ordering app, you need to gather those people who love pizza and who are frequently ordering pizza using online platforms. And they should be diverse, like in terms of age, in terms of gender, in terms of race, everything you can say. Third one is you prepare materials. So you hand it out even the paper wireframes or the digital products or the digital prototypes on Figma, on Adobe XD. So whatever you are gonna hand over to them, you just prepare material, you prepare the sound systems, you prepare the room. If you are conducting it offline or if you are conducting it online, you just prepare the meet, the timings and everything. So that is the third step. Fourth is like similar what I mentioned earlier, set up the environment where the study is gonna be conducted. One major aspect of environment is that you have two types of studies. You can be conducting a moderated study and second one is unmoderated. So in moderated you will be having a person over there which would be helping all the users in performing this task and any doubts they have. And second one is unmoderated, where no third party is involved and the users are on their own to conduct all the task and to finish the study. Fifth one is to conduct the test in a limited period of time. Sixth is after you conduct the test, you gather all the feedbacks, you gather all the information, the data, you try to analyze it. You need to identify themes, the common themes that all users are facing, even if it is like in sign up process, in login process, in checkout process. For example, I'm just mentioning these for just examples. So you need to analyze those data. And seventh is reporting results. So after all the studies conducted and you have gathered the results and you have taken your actions and insights, you need to prepare these results to show it to your senior members, to developers, the project managers, the product managers. And then based upon these results and recommendations, actions and insights can be taken upon on the designs and they can be reiterated. So the designs can be made user friendly, more user friendly, and even if they doubt that there is something missing, they can conduct this study again to just get to know what the final product should look like to make its end users more happy and more satisfied with the product. Almost your design process is complete. You have completed all the stages and you are ready with your final UI product, making changes and iterations based on your UX research study and understanding your users. You have done everything perfect till now. But there is one more step that is not mandatory, but in large companies or organizations where you are working with a lot of team members and senior team members who are also stakeholders in this project or in this product, you need to follow one more extra bonus step, that is critique sessions and feedback. So these are mostly done without any end users. These are basically done on a roundtable conference or on a virtual meeting with your senior members, with your other team members and product managers or project managers. So what is basically a critique section? They are crucial components of UX design process that allows you, designers like you and teams to receive input, insights and suggestions from various stakeholders, including team members, clients and end users. So end users are most probably not involved most of the times, but if there are end users which are internal to your company, like you are making a platform or product for employees or internal team members, then also they can be part of this discussion. And the sessions are basically designed to help you improve the quality of design, identify potential issues and align the design with users needs and project goals. So in UX research study it is different, because in UX research study you are discussing with users and trying to understand that, and in this part you are trying to sit with other designers who are also expert in design field, and they are trying to give you feedback and suggest some changes based on their expertise and their knowledge of design. So this is what makes your design more effective and more user friendly. So feedback and critique sessions are, as I mentioned, are a bonus part, and if possible you should conduct, because users can just suggest you based on their needs and their requirements, but designers can also suggest you based on these theories, the UX models, the UX theories, and certain changes based upon their expertise that can be proven to be more effective and more user friendly for your final hi-fi product. From your fellow designers and other senior members and stakeholders and conducting a critique session. Next is what happens. So the feedback collected here is also similar to what we had collected in the UX research studies and usability testing. We'll go through these following steps in the order, in 1 to 10 order, and then we'll just make changes to our designs based upon those feedback. So we'll review and reflect the changes that have been made, identify common themes by all the stakeholders, identify which common problems all of them have raised with our design. We will prioritize changes, the changes that can be made or not made. Next would be synthesizing solutions. So we'll be making solutions, and we'll be synthesizing, like creating solutions for what common themes have been raised and what common issues have been raised by other fellow members and other stakeholders for during the critique session. And based upon that solutions, we will iterate on our designs and make the relevant changes to that. We'll prepare for user testing preparation, because after UX research study and after this critique session, when the final hi-fi prototype for the product is ready, we need one more loop to get back to the users and understand whether we have actually solved their problem or not. Then we will communicate with the stakeholders about the changes we have made. We will document all the changes. We'll make changes to our design systems. If there is something to be changed over there, we'll document all the changes on the overview or on the other parts of the project. We'll follow up for more changes with the members, so we'll can have like a small critique session again to just discuss the changes we have done and stay open to adaptation. So this is one of the most important parts, because whenever you are designing a product, you might consider yourself expert in that field, but there are still many challenges because each problem is unique in itself and each of those problems have different solutions. So you should stay open to adoption for the changes made by either in the critique session or in the usability testing parts. So this was all about the critique sessions and feedback. We can discuss more about these sessions in the upcoming lecture, that is how these feedbacks will make up our final changes and how we'll incorporate these changes before the final handoff to the developers. So we'll in the next lecture discuss about what is our last step after we have completed the project, that is basically handing off our design to the development team so that they can start developing those screens for the actual product. The final product design, and we have completed all the stages. Now comes the last responsible task, that is handing over of all the design files and all the responsibilities and all the knowledge to be transferred to the development team, to the developer by the designer. So we name that as design handoff or final handoff to developers, or KT in some companies, that is knowledge transfer. So there are a lot of names to this process, but this is the process where our responsibilities and our task end for this project, and development team starts working and executing the product parts and start developing the screens and pages for the website or mobile apps that we have designed. So what is design handoff? It is basically a process of transferring design assets and information from the UX UI designers to developers in a structured and organized manner, enabling them to accurately implement the design into a functional project. So a smooth design handoff is essential to ensure that the design vision is executed correctly, reducing miscommunication and speeding up the development process. So as a better designer, as a good designer, as a responsible designer, it's your duty that all the design files, all the assets, all the information, all the knowledge is transferred accurately as it is you got it from your senior project managers or your clients, and make sure that the development team is going to follow the same approach and design the things in the manner that you have designed. So there are some deliverables that have to be transferred to the development team. So I think I have covered almost all of them in these list. If you think I have missed some of those, you can mention them in your comment section in this lectures comment tab. So first of all, we include all assets such as images, icons, fonts, and color codes that should be clearly accessible and clearly documented. because whenever developers are designing those screens, they need every asset to create those screens. Please create a detailed design specification document or style guide that we have created. So that includes important information such as layout guidelines, color palettes, typography rules, interaction behaviors, and any specific design considerations that might be helpful to the developers. Now collect all of these things, package them, and export all design assets that are needed for implementation. This might include high resolution images that you have used, vector graphics, the SVG files, the CSS files, and any other relevant files that developers will need to replicate the design accurately. So it's your responsibility that whatever type of files, whatever type of assets that have used in your design files, you need to make sure that all of these are transferred to the development team. So whenever they require them, they don't need to rush here or there, and they can just use to create the desired screens. So this was all about the design part, and here your responsibility is over. You are done with your project. You have created a wonderful hi-fi mockups for the project, and now you are ready to move on to the next project. So here is what the design process and the complete UI UX design journey gets over for any designer. Congratulations to all of those who have completed this course till here. And from now here, before completing the course and before wrapping things up, I will just explain to you some of the careers and job roles in UI UX that you can opt to and that you can find relevant. So before you apply in UI UX, you know what type of roles are available in the industry and what type of roles are there which suits your capability to apply for. So these are some of the major job roles that are standardized across the industry and that are available for you. So UX designer, who is more concerned with the UX part, like a UI designer is more concerned with the UI part. Interaction designer is basically a more advanced version of the UI details like animations, transactions and all. Visual designer is also related to the UI parts. Information architect is just one who is creating those information architectures, dealing with all clients and stakeholders, and between UI UX designers. User researcher is just what works on the first two or three stages of the design process. Usability analyst is one who just learns the product and conducts all the studies, the UX research studies. Product designer is the one who is master in all the five steps. Along with that, he or she also understands the business prospects of the design of the project. User interface engineer is someone who also knows how to code front end, and design manager is one who is like a product manager or a project manager who is a leading team member, who is the leader of the team, who knows how to handle everyone. So he is a combination of business management and design at the same time. So these roles are very bifurcated and separated in their own terms and in their own stages at different design process, but the one thing that they have in common is that they all complement each other while you are working on a product. So if you go into big companies like Google or Facebook or Netflix or any other major company in India like Tata, like Infosys, these posts might differ and there might be job descriptions and job roles that complement to these roles. But when you are starting as a freelancer and when you work in a small companies like startups, you are not allowed to perform any one task. You need to be a complete package. You need to be a full stack designer who knows all these roles and who can, so what I'm trying to say is basically in your early stages of a career, you need to know the complete full package, the full process and everything that I have told you in this course, and need to perform all the responsibilities of each of these different job roles. And whenever you get experience and move into big companies, then you can, according to your expertise and capabilities, move into a specific job role. So this was all about different job roles that you can opt for in the UI UX field.